Oh my God! Welcome back to the podcast on this a very special day. The two gentlemen who we are welcoming into the studio today are two of my favorite members of the This Is Us family. We have Glenn Ficarra and John Requa.
Hello, welcome,
gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
To be here.
These two gentlemen are a creative duo,
Yes,
directing, writing, producing team who I think I Love You, Philip Morris was probably the first
film,
your coming out party, as
our
it were.
first official directing
in more ways than one.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's it was our first directing thing. But we've been working together as writers and making short films since college.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's where you guys met.
Pratt, in the 80s.
And if
the 80s.
1987.
For those listening, the 1900s were a complicated time.
I hitched my horse.
There was disease.
There was disease.
There was.
But if anybody ever asks me about you two, because I do talk about you a lot, I have a great amount of respect and admiration for both of you.
Yeah.
I said, all you need to know about these two men is that they directed the pilot of This Is Us and Bad Santa.
We wrote Bad Santa.
We wrote Bad Santa.
Wrote Bad Santa.
Yeah.
Those two projects, if you mash them together,
is what
I think are a perfect encapsulation of you two. And thank you so much for joining
And
us.
our first produced screenplay was a talking animal movie.
which
for Warner
was
Brothers.
what?
Cats and Dogs. Yeah.
I saw Cats and Dogs.
Glenn Ficarra was the voice of the Russian kitty.
Were you really?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Breaking news. Hot take.
I think not baby puppy.
Get out of here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait. You guys started. I'm always sort of fascinated by this. Hold on, let me give a little bit of backstory. I'm talking again. A little backstory of like how I met these guys.
Someone off the podcast told Sterling that he talked too much on the
Talked way too
podcast,
much
and now
on
he
the
has
podcast.
like a thing, and we want him to
this your
erase
wife who
that
told
from
you
his
that?
memory.
Here's the thing.
That's what I said. I was like,
It
that's
was
certainly
probably
Ryan.
So check this out. I don't know if I told you guys this. I was in New York City doing a play by Susan Laurie Parks. It's called Father Comes Home from the Wars 1, 2, and 3. And Tiffany is casting director, who I came in to see these guys for a movie that they were doing with Tina Fey called Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yes.
Right?
Great movie.
So I go in, I audition for these guys. They wind up putting me in their movie. Got a small part, but a cool part. It was a lot of fun, right? Then I was doing OJ, which is 20th Century Fox, which is our studio, which is also the studio for This Is Us. And I don't know the exact, so you guys can fill in for me. And they're like, oh, this guy's playing Darden. We should bring him in for This Is Us, whatever. The Untitled Dan Fogelman project. His name's Sterling Brown. And the guys, it was the first time walking into a room where they're directing the pilot. And I'm like, oh, they're friendly faces.
Yeah.
It's nice to have like people know you. The studio is sort of like excited about you. You know what I'm saying? Like to have buzz. I don't know. Mandy Moore, you've had buzz for a long
No,
come on now.
no. But
you Mandy
that's-
Moore. You're Amanda Lee
That's
Moore. You didn't have
different.
buzz your
That's so
whole life.
different.
So it was a really interesting sort of experience to come into the room and have like people that you've seen before that know your work, whatever, that are excited to see you. Like, because most of the time you're just in there singing for your supper, trying to, hello, my baby, doing your whole jazz hands type
Let's
thing.
not get the WB involved.
Let's not do that. That's a good one. I appreciate that. But so you guys also, so everybody knows, had worked with Dan previous on Crazy Stupid Love, which my wife and I watched, and we were like, oh, snap. Like, these are the same people that directed and wrote that thing. Like, this show has to be good.
Yeah.
I was just excited to have the meeting. You guys, what do you, that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
From our perspective,
Yeah.
so we're trying to cast this part of a gunnery sergeant for this Whiskey Tango Foxtrot movie. And we're not really finding anybody. And Tiffany says, the guy, he has been in jail, basically working in like North Carolina.
South Carolina.
yeah.
In jail.
He hasn't been able to work a
Hidden
bunch
away,
because he's been on this series,
Yeah.
small series, Army Wives. Right?
Yeah.
Army
That's
Wives.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
So he's available. He's great. So he came in, sold, right? While we're making the movie in New Mexico, Sterling he's just a star. We actually had said, like, I don't know who this guy is, but we're working with him forever because he's something that's about to happen.
Yeah.
And we didn't know about Darden.
Yeah.
what happened was this dancing this is us script, and we're editing, and we're reading the thing. We go, oh, this is Sterling. We just do, Sterling. So we said, Dan, you got to meet with this guy. You're the only person we ever put up for Randall.
There was a stiff wind blowing behind Sterling.
And Dan was like, okay, I never really heard of him, and I was maybe hoping for a name or whatever. But at the same time, Tiffany said you were in the OJ thing. Yeah. So we thought, oh, this is great. The studio knows him. Maybe this isn't far-fetched.
It worked out.
It worked out perfect.
It worked out. I appreciate the vote of confidence, gentlemen. And we're working together right now. Just for folks who know, they also directed the pilot of Paradise.
That's right.
Yes.
Wow. So they have been working with you. They are working with you.
Forever.
We've been working together for quite some time.
A package deal.
It's not so bad.
In fact, at this location in Glendale, California, where we were picked up by a van to go location scout for season 2.
This is true.
That's right. By the entire This Is Us crew.
Yeah, that's right.
And we will be interviewing the creator of This Is Us right after this. Yeah, it's a family affair.
It's pretty exciting.
Can you guys, let's go back to the 1900s.
Let's go back.
And talk to me, because we actually, with Isaac and Elizabeth, had another kind of what I view as, maybe it's not as rare, but a rare happening in our industry, which is a directing, writing
duo
team.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you guys have been doing that from the beginning, and so had Isaac and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And we had 2 sets of those on our show, which I think is even rarer.
That's true.
You guys started in college. Talk to me about where you went, how you decided that this partnership was going to be lasting. If you still have. I mean, it might not.
Well, it's an interesting thing is, you're in college, you make movies about death that are morbid and depressing, and you think you're going to be a serious filmmaker. And then we would have little side projects that were funny and kind of not emotional, but character-based. And everybody loved those, and everybody hated their serious films about death. Back when we had to shoot on film, and you'd spend a fortune on getting the film, and then you do some stupid thing on the video, and everybody's like, "I saw that. That was amazing!" All across the campus at our school.
We have a clip,
and we were.
Roll the clip.
If we have any, we have any intelligence about us, we were like, well, maybe we should just go with the thing that people like.
What was the campus?
It was Pratt in Brooklyn, very near Susan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, very near where
I
she
lived
grew
in
up.
Fort Greene, and so Pratt's right down the street.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Susan grew up in the neighborhood. We must have bumped into. Of course, she was young and But anyway, so we were smart enough to go. Okay, well, we seem to be good at this, so let's just follow that. And instead of the thing, the highfalutin stuff we thought we were going to do.
Yeah, we bonded over the fact when you go to art school.
Yeah,
because you're not smart.
That's why you go to art school.
Different kind of smart.
We were sort of bonding over the fact that we're put into these classes that you have to take the foundation classes, drawing, painting, light, color, design, sculpture.
Sure.
So, some filmmakers can draw and do stuff, but not us. So you're the worst people in the class are the film majors. You're stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you naturally get together and bond. And I think, we kind of knew each other from our light, color, and design class. And then we met at the college bar one night, and we were doing some shtick while drinking a pitcher of beer, and then John just poured the entire pitcher over my head for a laugh. And I was like, it was just.
Are you serious?
Love ever since.
Yeah.
Because it started with just little.
That could have gone such the wrong way.
Wrong. Yeah.
But you knew him well enough to know that it was.
Out.
Yeah.
That's how you
find out. And we were also the guys who, it wasn't a serious film class. We went in our film 1 class. They were like, what was the film that got you here? This is not a joke. Everybody said Empire Strikes Back. I said Lawrence of Arabia, and he said Clockwork Orange. We were the only 2 guys in the entire class who didn't say Empire Strikes Back.
Really?
Yeah, we were the only guys who actually knew about other movies besides Star Wars.
Sure.
So we
were
we're like, I think we should hang out.
Yeah.
And then, then the first thing that you wrote together, was it just by happenstance? Like, I'm working on this, let me show it to you. And then you start working together? Or is like you formulate an idea together?
Yeah, we were just making short films that tickled us. And then we made a bunch of short film collections, and they did the circuit.
The
Festival
Underground Film
Festival.
New York Underground Film Festival.
Which Todd Phillips was on the
Yeah, Todd Phillips was on the board.
He was running that.
That makes sense.
We've known
When he
Todd
was in
when
college.
we were just like pimply faced college kids. We've known Todd.
Poured a pitcher of beer over his head.
And so that got a lot of interest. And then somebody paid us to write a screenplay. They paid us $7,000.
Yes.
To write a
$7,000.
That's huge.
to write a screenplay, and we wrote a screenplay, and then he loved that. Gabe Sachs, who's still working in the business and out there, and hey Gabe, if you're listening, and then Gabe paid us $10,000 to write another screenplay, and just basically whatever we would just pitch it to him, and we weren't union,
fund.
and we would just, and so we had these things, and these things became our calling card.
Yeah.
Never got made.
Yeah, never got made, but we built our career on just people passed them around and loved
Did you
the
guys
scripts.
knock them out quick? Like, what's the
Back
process?
then we did. Yeah.
Yeah, what is the process? How did you guys find, like, I want to do this and I'm going to do this? Like, how did you sort of delineate?
Well, I just wanted to be a director, and I never thought I could do comedy. I just didn't think it was appropriate for me. And John convinced me that I was funny, or funny enough.
Funny looking.
And
there it is.
I didn't know that's what he meant at the time.
Write what you know.
So wait, let me say this real quick, because one of the important things to realize when you were directed in a John and Glenn episode, and especially when it has like a bit or a comedy thing, like you wind up doing the line as written, and then they just stand next to the camera and they give you about 17 different alts
Yes.
that they want
They
you to
pepper
try,
you with different
and,
things,
and you just like take a breath and you're like, and you do the alt, or whatever, and they're just like, and they're getting, you can see them just like, okay, say this. Okay, say that. Right. What I want to know is like, because it always seems you guys, no one's ever coming up at the same time to the actors. Do you guys talk at Village as like who's going to talk to who? Or is it just the shorthand now to the point where you're like, oh no, I want to say this to so-and-so and I'm going to say this to so-and-so?
We check with each other real quick.
We usually, one of us has a better idea what they want, and we can kind of sense that like one's more passionate than the other, and we back down.
Okay.
Yeah, and we early on we were really conscientious about like not talking over each other.
Yeah.
Because directing teams are so rare in our early career.
Sure.
They were so rare, and people were weirded out by it. But now there's lots of directing teams, and we have a bit of a reputation. So now we just, you know how it is now. We just come down and like, shut up, guys, shut up.
I mean, we used to
Shut
have
up,
to
just one of you talk.
lobby the DGA to, shoot a movie, or
Because they did
every
want to
time
give you
we'd have to
both
sign a
credit.
waiver or whatever.
Yeah, tell me about that, because there are several directing duos. There's a lot more, I'd say, writing teams than there are directing teams.
Definitely.
Logistically speaking, the unions don't like that. They don't like
they're
to.
okay. The DGA, the Directors Guild of America, is okay with it now. But
Okay.
if you, for example, Joel and Ethan Coen, their first 5 movies, I think, are produced by Ethan, directed by Joel, because they would not give them shared credit, even though they directed them together.
They were brothers.
And they were brothers. They had worked together their whole life, and so the DGA was sort of. And when we joined as a team, we had to make a movie as independently in order to qualify to
For
be
the
a
DGA.
team.
Yeah.
And we were grilled. We were like brought in and like it was like the
Interrogated or
interrogation
something?
scene
Wow.
About your knowledge of directing?
Just about like
Who
you guys,
did what?
you guys are going to divide
They
the work.
wanted to just make
They
sure
thought we
that
were going
it's
to divide
not-
the work.
It comes from a pure place, which was in the old days.
Yeah.
You would just like, some guy would put his mistress on as a
Right.
a writer or director on a
Sure.
thing, and so they're just trying to make sure of that. But the fact that we wrote together was helpful.
Okay.
That we had been writing together for so long.
Yeah.
So it didn't hurt that you were also mistresses to each other.
No. Yeah. Well, we fooled them, and I think it worked. Yeah. And now they don't ask anymore.
Okay.
Because they can't imagine.
So we're now on 2 projects together. This is Us in Paradise. And I'm curious, because you guys are writers, is it a different approach to directing something that you've written versus taking somebody else's words and directing those? Like, how do they compare and contrast?
I like both.
Okay.
It's a completely different thing when you've written it yourself.
Yeah.
I think. Right? I mean, you just know it intimately.
Sure.
And then, Dan's a special case. We sort of speak fluent Fogelman.
Sure.
So there's not a lot of miscommunication.
Right.
And he's just like a collaborator to us. So he's just part of the team, I think. Or we're part of his team. And I think it's a really interesting thing when you're directing somebody else's material, because you have to, just like an actor, you have to like really like dig into every word and understand what this What do they want out of this? So, we always do this session where we ask a bunch of stupid questions for 2 hours.
No such thing
we
as
just
stupid
go,
questions, guys. We know that.
When you say this, is this a joke or is this is this reference? It's all that stuff. I find that interesting.
What's interesting about when we write stuff, one of the reasons we bonded with Dan so strongly when we made Crazy Stupid Love was he was just like, like if the scene wasn't working, he goes, it's the writing. Just change it.
Yeah.
And that's our attitude too. When it's our writing,
we're
like, it's got this writing. It's terrible. Just change it. You guys anything you can come up with is got to be better than this.
Okay.
And we have that attitude about our writing. Most writers are like, they missed a comma. It's
There's a
precious about it.
Yeah,
Sure.
and they don't. They just want to. They feel like they feel like they're being robbed. And we're just like, obviously it's a disaster. The script is a disaster, and you actors are going to come along and save us. That's just our attitude. And Dan was the same way. And we were like, oh God, thought we were the only ones who were like that. And he's like, no, clearly there's got to be something better. So we shoot scripted, and then we like just to goof around and
Sure.
And it's nice to be a writer when you're directing, and if the scene's not working, you get the scripted scene, and then you're like, okay, guys,
Right.
you guys, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's just sit down and figure out how to make this scene work, and then you just go back and you sort of improv and do a little thing and fix the scene.
I'm curious how This Is Us came to you. I mean, obviously you guys have the relationship with Dan, and I'm sure after the success of Crazy Stupid Love, I'm sure you guys were all like, we've got to figure out something else to do together. But how did it come to you? And then you guys are also obviously executive producers on the show. So and you directed some of our most seminal episodes and memorable episodes.
Every
the pool,
death but
I love.
yours.
And the Super Bowl. And
Yes.
so I'm just curious to hear
It was
how
our
it all...
ambition to kill you.
Yes, it was. We begged.
Sorry.
So we're
we were
available.
But you got Milo instead.
we were in Toronto, so we weren't able to do it. So,
Dan was talking about This Is Us while we were shooting Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, wow.
As a movie idea, I believe. You
Yes.
can ask him
Yes,
about
yes,
this.
yes.
But in my memory, he was just
It
like,
was a movie.
I have this rough idea, and it was always the reveal at the end that you've been watching.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil
An
it for anybody.
interconnected family.
Good.
Yes.
Family. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
That was the big reveal. We always thought it was a good idea, and then he finally, while we were doing Whiskey Tango, Foxtrot, he sent us the script, and he's like, I don't know if you remember this, and
this is an interesting story. I hate to. You mind if I tell the story?
Sure.
We had just dropped out of. I went on vacation with my 5-year-old, 6-year-old son, and the phone was ringing off the hook, and I was on the phone just constantly, and the whole trip, and I wasn't able to engage with my son. I feel like I'm missing my son's childhood.
Yeah.
And we were booked to go do a movie, and I said, you know what? We got to drop out of this movie because I just can't. I can't leave my son. I can't just not be part of him being raised, And we quit the movie, and a lot of people very angry with us. And Dan's script landed on
That's true.
our desk the next day.
Wow.
And it was shooting in LA. I mean, it's just like sometimes and we wouldn't have been able to do it if we had kept that movie. So it was just, it was
And it all
providence.
sort of fell into place. It was like because we were off season, so we weren't in that pilot casting madness. It was like everybody was available that you wanted, and it was and all just sort of
and by the way, and this you can ask Dan about this. Can you say we said this?
Okay.
More than anything Dan's ever written, the pilot of This Is Us is a real reflection of his whole life.
Yeah.
And you should pin him down about that because I read it and I'm like, Dan, this is not a script. This is you. Because so much of his backstory, and he won't want to talk about a lot of it, but it's really, it was a beautiful thing. It was like it came straight from inside him and his heart, and it was just like we knew him well enough at that point to really feel it. It was really great.
That seems to be even for those of us who didn't know Dan's story when we read that script, that we knew that there was something different about that script.
Yeah.
And everyone we've talked to has had that same response.
Yeah.
More That Was Us after these words from our sponsors. We are getting away next weekend, and we're taking the whole family to San Diego to celebrate my dad's birthday. We've got all kinds of stuff planned. We're going to see a little concert, take the kids down there, see some friends, and we are going with Airbnb.
That is why I love staying in an Airbnb. Hotels are fine, but there's just something about having your own space that makes everything feel more personal. A cozy home to, settle into, a kitchen to cook a favorite meal, a quiet corner to unwind at the end of the night. It makes the whole trip feel more special.
And while you're off making those memories, your own home could be doing the same for someone else. If you're heading out of town, why not list your place on Airbnb? Maybe there's a family looking for a stay just like yours. A space where they can come together, share meals, and feel at home.
And the best part? You decide when to host, how to set up your space, and who stays. Airbnb makes it simple so your home can work for you while you're off enjoying your trip. So whether you're planning a big celebration, a quiet getaway, or just a much-needed break, consider hosting on Airbnb while you're away. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. These days, your personal info is everywhere, and most of us have no idea who has access to it.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online. At a time when data breaches and surveillance are more common than ever.
See, data brokers buy and sell your information, your full name, address, and even info about your family. And that's not just creepy, it puts you at risk for identity theft, phishing, and harassment.
As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me. I mean, since becoming a parent, it's all the more important to me, but also I'm someone who does most of my shopping online, so I feel like all of my information, my name, my credit card information, address, passwords, all of that is on, countless websites.
I'm someone who likes to feel in control of my space. And knowing my personal data is being bought and sold behind the scenes, that didn't sit right. Delete Me goes to work for you, removing your private information from hundreds of data broker websites.
Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, at a special discount for our listeners today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting TWU to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text TWU to 64000. That's TWU to 64000. Message and data rates may apply.
Talk about world building or whatnot, setting the tone of how a show is going to be done. Like, does that feel, you have conversations obviously with the creator or whatnot, but in terms of like our show, just for folks who pay attention to that kind of thing, very few dolly shots. It's pretty much handheld throughout the entire thing and whatnot. Was that like the verite was something that you guys had talked about, I'm sure, from the beginning, and then ultimately decided on with Yasha? Just talk to us about decisions made in terms of establishing style.
Yeah, we wanted it to feel kind of intimate and voyeuristic in these people's lives.
Yeah.
And we had just experimented with a lot of handheld on Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yeah.
And, it was just a fast way to move. It was great for, like, throwing out ideas and redoing stuff and keeping it moving.
Yeah.
And, so we said there are no dollies allowed, no cranes allowed. No, if you're shooting in a car, shoot in the car. Don't do the rig, and all that stuff. Just, like, make it real. Like a camera crew is following these people around.
Yeah.
And make it feel that way. It's okay if there's bumps and mistakes.
Yeah.
And it just makes it feel like more intimate,
like
real.
you're spying on someone. Like we wanted this sense of like you're inappropriately dropping in on a conversation in a family,
right?
And so 2 eyes, always trying to do 2 eyes over, and always trying to crowd the frame. So like you're holding a piece of like the camera's over here, you're shooting over someone's shoulder, and you want to hold a piece of that person in the shot. So there's always 2 people in the shot.
Yeah.
So you're always like, and also in the cutting pattern, staying on the listener more than you normally would.
Okay.
So you see people reacting to dialogue as opposed to just, that was a big thing. Was like that. And then in the exact opposite for Paradise. Paradise is oftentimes you'll know one eye, like profile, so you're not inside because it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Like you're not invited in. You're outside of this thing.
Yeah, trying to figure it out.
And like you want more information, and this is like we want to give you too much information. We want to make the audience feel uncomfortable that they're dropping in on
Being
this
like kept at bay.
Yeah, like they uncomfortable that they're being brought into this family and getting the secrets that they shouldn't be getting. And that's that voyeuristic thing.
I think it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, remember we would always put the camera in we were eventually told not to do that anymore, but we would let the actors drive.
Yeah.
Remember this? And we'd be in the back seat with the camera.
Yeah.
And we would just shoot you in the back seat like that, like you would a documentary or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like halfway through the show, like we stopped doing the
because
practical
the union.
driving.
I think it's when I rolled the camera up in the window.
And the window shattered.
was it you?
That was me.
What did you do?
Well,
Remember that?
it was so hot, we would roll the windows down between takes. Me and Chrissy's window up front. Yasi was sitting in the back seat with the camera, and he had
They're like, okay, rolling.
He had rolled his window down so he could fit the back of the camera out the window. And when I went to roll our windows up,
rolled his too.
I hit the wrong switch, and all I heard Yasu very quietly go, "Oh no 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 no!" And boom! The whole window exploded on the back of it.
I remember this now.
Yeah.
It was about then that we stopped
The camera
union.
The operator union.
Yeah.
They were not happy.
It's you
Well,
do all
dangerous
kinds of.
because if an airbag goes off,
That's
For
true.
sure.
You can really hurt
And you're
somebody.
not belted in. And,
You could turn an airbag off or whatever.
Yeah.
The rule now is as long as you control the street or you can control the traffic around,
Yeah.
you can do it. But back then it's just
Let
Wild West.
Let me ask you guys this because and you guys tell me if you get the same sort of thing. And I know, Chris, we've talked about this a little bit. People always talk about how sad the show is and how it makes them cry or whatnot. And I think we've had this conversation. I was like, but I thought the show was a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first read it, I was like, this thing is so
funny.
funny.
There's
right?
so much levity.
So much levity to it. So I'm curious in terms of tone for you guys. What did you first clock when you read it, and what is it that you wanted to come across as you established the tone of the show?
I mean, it's the way it was written. I mean, it's in there. It's in the script. And we'd always done a lot of stuff as writers where we were trying to mix tones, like Dan does really well. So that's why we wanted to do Crazy Stupid Love when he wrote it, because we're like, this is basically the style that we do.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point because Dan and Glenn and I were doing mixed tone, and we sort of found each other.
Right.
And we were like, oh, wow, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And the show was mixed tone.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think probably that earlier seasons were played a little more with levity than later, because I think the storylines just had to get heavier to keep you invested.
Sure.
So because Justin,
It's hysterical.
So
it's
funny.
just hysterical in those first few seasons, and he goes through this tragic thing, and he still has his moments, but that's just the nature of series.
It's also kind of
somewhere.
the trajectory of life in general. It all starts out so fun.
Well, also,
It all starts out so fun, so light,
yeah, but
and then as the seasons roll by,
everybody goes.
darker.
Everybody
Yourself
goes.
on a-
it's darker.
Everybody
and
goes to a funeral and they're talking to a friend they haven't seen in a long time, and then they laugh and they look around. They're like, "Oh, I just laughed at a funeral," but that's life.
That
Life
is
is
life.
life. Sat crying and laughing at the same time.
Yeah.
And we mechanistically storytelling. It's the rents. We call it the rents. Like you're telling a story, because this show was about surprises. Always was about big surprises.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was part of the dynamic of the show. Was we're trying to hide things from the very beginning and conceal things and then surprise people.
Yeah.
We're in a different time frame, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you make people laugh, and they stop investigating the show. They just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
They laugh and they forget about it. And they forget that maybe they would have, if you wouldn't have gone for that laugh, they would have kind of figured out what you were doing. Figure out the tricks, but the laugh, we would call it the rents. It would give you like a restart, and then so like a couple of laughs, and then suddenly you reveal it's Randall's an old man, and it's the future, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was the rents. It's like the rents they call it.
Interesting.
We call it.
Sorry to jump into the Super Bowl of it all, because we were just talking about that, and we're going to be talking about that episode with Dan in the next little bit. But Sterling was asking just about the practicality of the fire, and I was trying to explain to him. I was like, "We built a set out in like Palmdale. Was that where was that?
Somewhere out there.
And like we built the facade of the house, and I was like, a lot of the fire was practical, and obviously you guys can speak way better to all of this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we were in the freezing cold with like fire around us, like doing stuff in the bedroom.
Dude.
Milo was in the hallway with that mattress.
That's what I wanted to know. Like fire in the house in particular, when he's going to get the kids, etc. What's practical? What's CGI? Like
The house is made completely out of fire resistant material,
Okay.
and then they pipe it like a barbecue.
Okay.
It's just all these pipes.
Okay.
The whole
Gas
thing
everywhere.
is all these things, and they turn it on and light them up just like a barbecue, like your barbecue kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So it's like turn it on, turn it off, and nothing will keep burning. Nothing.
If you keep it on too long, it'll burn. But they
They were
Okay.
managing that,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So it was.
But
it
like the
was
fire
hot in there.
was
But also-
there. It was hot.
And then it also had it was really hot. Yeah, the these kind of portable flame bars that you put them in front of
Move
the
around.
camera,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then since we were on sort of longer lenses, kind of compress everything so it looks like
Yeah.
Milo's right in it. But he's
Okay.
not.
Okay. Because it does look like he's right in it.
No,
I'm
it's
like,
good. It
Lord
shoots really
have
well.
mercy.
That's the great thing about shooting on long lenses is it makes.
How much planning? Like, is it more than the average?
That was a lot of
setup?
planning.
I'm sure.
We had to
was-
board that whole sequence just to know what we could get away with and not get away with, and we were running out of time. I remember.
Board means storyboarded. We
Yeah.
storyboarded, so everything was every shot was a picture in a storyboard that we could reference.
Those art classes were coming back now.
Yeah,
exactly.
man.
Well, this is interesting. We went to art school and we like to complain about we were the worst kids in the class, but those lessons we learned in our foundation classes, which were drawing, light, color, and design, and 3D, we use every day when we direct. So it was like it's a good thing
Yeah.
to learn about that.
Yeah.
But we mainly was about building that set and making it really safe and making it filled with gas elements, just like you have at the bottom of your barbecue.
Sure.
A gas pipe
Yep.
with all these holes in it
Yep.
that just starts pumping out gas.
So what? Like, was crew masked in terms of like what? So as they're not inhaled too much gas, and like the actors.
No,
were,
it's ventilated. It had no ceiling.
ventilated.
Yeah, the smoke was created separately. So the gas would come as a clean flame like gas does.
Okay.
It burns clean.
Yeah.
And then the smoke would come from a smoke machine.
Yeah.
So you have two separate things. And the smoke isn't smoke. It's that kind of oil-based stuff. You know,
Okay.
that's not really smoke. It's like
It's
Roscoe fogger.
bodega incense.
Are we lowering people down for real off the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off the roof.
We built a roof set. It was elevated, but it wasn't. Real
It wasn't
high.
as high as
Yeah,
an
okay.
actual roof
We
would
had
be.
we had a was it a cherry picker or something? We had a thing that they it was a cherry picker that came up to meet the roof line, and then the
just sort
actors
of jumped off
climbed
out of
in
frame. Yeah.
Got it.
into the cherry picker.
Okay.
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun, but
It was fun.
gave it a lot of
It was
restrictions.
freezing. I
Yeah,
remember
it
that.
was freezing.
It
It
was,
was
so
very cold.
And it
very
was-
cold. But
Because
it
there
was
was
all
no
airy.
roof, so you were just like out in the exposed elements outside.
Oh, it's open up top.
Yes. Yeah.
So it can all. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
There's no, because there's no, you can never build up carbon dioxide or whatever. It is so much fun. It was like those kind of things, like the White House set in Paradise. It's just a
A
thrill.
kid in a candy store. Yeah. You're like,
it's just like
this
it's
is
just
why
so
we
thrilling.
became
You-
directors.
Okay, so wait. I'm just trying chronology. You did 1 and 2 of This Is Us, and 4.
No. One.
Just 1.
Ken did 2.
Then they did 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yes.
And then
what's
second
right-
season, too.
The pool
Yeah.
is 4. What was right
Yeah.
before the pool?
It was going back in time, I believe, like bringing the babies had just come. We were taking the babies home from the
Gotcha.
hospital, and I
Right.
follow
Gotcha.
William
right.
on the bus.
William,
and
yeah.
Okay. So there's because you said Afro American. I was like, all right,
Yes.
Mandy Moore, I got you. There
that's
was
what you remember.
no because of the time. Like we've been so many things. It's
Yeah.
been like
Oh gosh.
1, 3, 4, 16, which is Memphis.
Oh, it's 16. Wow.
It's 16, and then come back for 214, which we were just
The Super
talking
Bowl.
about, the Super Bowl. Is that it?
That's
I
it.
think that might be it.
Yeah.
That's it. Then you guys got busy creating,
Yeah, we
doing
kept
all
doing
kinds
our
of other
stuff.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Is
I
there,
got very sad when I realized
That they were
this
gone?
is
They
how
weren't coming
TV
back.
worked.
I was like,
I was
what?
like, what do you mean? You're going to do something else.
You're not with us all the time.
Well, but Dan always would call us and go like, "Hey, got this episode coming. This Vietnam thing, and it's
Yeah.
a lot of
No,
VFX.
thanks.
Can you come back?"
No thanks.
And we were just not available. But he was always, and we really tried to make it work out for
The end.
the end,
Yeah.
and we just couldn't. Our schedule kept sliding.
You sign a contract and they
I
make
got
you
you.
do it.
I got you.
You know how it is. You just
I do indeed.
Yeah, we would have loved to come back. We would have
mean,
loved
we-
to come back every season, but it just
Yeah,
didn't
we
work
had to
out.
move heaven and earth just to go to the 100th episode
Party.
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Were you
During
glad you
COVID.
did? That was
I
quite
was.
a
It
party.
was a good party.
It was.
It was a good party.
There was things that looked like cake.
Remember that?
Yeah, but they were like
Is
boxes
it
of
cake?
crayons and
Is it cake?
yeah.
Are
Oh,
there-
it was Is It Cake?
Are
was
there
all
before
cake.
Is It Cake?
specific
It was all cake,
memories
yeah.
out of 1, 3, 4 116 and 214 that like come to mind specifically for you guys?
Well, for the Super Bowl episode, there's you at the.
Can we talk about? So wait, hold on,
Yeah.
wait, because we're gonna talk about this in 214 too.
You asked him the question. You asked him the question.
those are
Like,
the
you know what?
two.
Never mind.
Well, no. You can say it. No, go ahead and say it.
Sterling.
I don't understand.
I know what he's gonna say.
Well, the scenes with you, with Mandy, when witnessing
Jack passing away.
He can't
yeah.
even say it.
Yeah.
He
It was
can't
very
even say it.
intense. I mean, it was like I'm sure it was a really hard day for you.
Yeah.
We just felt horrible making you go through that over and over again.
Oh.
And we just kept saying, we gotta get,
Because we came up with some tricky little directory shot. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
We put a blue screen behind you
Yeah.
so that we would shoot the people running to the emergency room to save
Yep.
Jack in slow motion.
Yeah.
So that you would be talking on the phone and you'd see these people running in slow motion behind you.
The shot is
And
dope.
so like
It's
you're
so cool.
spilling you're spilling your guts and we're doing something. So you wanted so we felt bad about
And
that.
the moment with the candy bar was so fraught. It's such a hard thing to pull off.
You're so good.
And it became, we were so concerned about making sure it worked.
Yeah.
That we probably did it too long.
No.
think.
No.
I mean, we got there, we
you
did
all
it.
Chris and I say this all the time.
That's
It was the
moment.
best acting moment in the show.
That's
Oh
it.
gosh.
Yeah, it was-
Mandy Moore,
That's-
Mandy Moore.
Well,
You guys,
so
please.
when you go into the hospital room.
Yes.
Well, because
That
you guys
scene.
tell them because she didn't know he was going to be on the bed, right?
I didn't.
right. Instead of show your POV
Yeah.
of him, better to see him in the reflection.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that way we could just hold it
Yeah.
and it won't feel gratuitous.
So when you
Yeah.
guys see Mandy Moore walks into the room, she sees Jack, and we as an audience in the reflection of the door, in the glass pane of the door, see his body laying down in the bed, not
Yeah.
moving.
And that way we could just, the camera's on you the whole time
Yeah.
and you could just do your thing. But
It was
because of
hysterical.
that, it was like getting the timing
Hysterical.
right, getting the,
So funny.
Laugh riot.
it became a thing. But it was an intense day.
Yeah.
It was
Just
intense.
like Memphis.
Oh God.
But
was
we talked
an
about,
intense-
by the way, we talked about that making the pilot. We talked about like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to reveal the actual death? And I mean, we were sort of on the pilot. Just Dan
Wow,
was
you were
like, "What am
already
I going to
talking about
do?" And
Yeah,
we're
we
sort of
were-
like trying to figure it out. So like the beginnings of it were happening while we were shooting the pilot on the
The
set.
rumination is
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I mean, I have to. Yep, and then Memphis.
Memphis.
That was and then
intense.
dear old Ron. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and just like so many great. Remember, like the improv scenes.
You guys, they found the drinking fountains, and they're like, "Look, guys, there's these two drinking fountains," and it kind of has this feeling of like, one was a colored drinking fountain, one was a whites only drinking fountain. I was like, "Let the camera roll, bro. Let's go ahead, let's do it." And we would have so much fun. And Ron was like, "Yeah, I used to try to drink here and everything." I was like, "Well, I was raised by white people. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna show you. I'm drinking at the tall fountain, baby. It's my time. This is my time." But like, they would just find things. Like it felt very guerrilla.
Yeah,
was
it
very
was.
well, yeah.
We were a really small crew. We're driving around. We did a whole, 80 takes of a scene and just improv, driving from one location to another. We just put the camera in the car, drove across Memphis.
Yeah.
These two just kept
Yeah.
it going, and we used it all.
And remember the barbershop?
And
I do
We
remember the
went to a real
barbershop
barbershop
too.
in
Yes,
Memphis
we did.
and just let it roll.
Really?
Yeah.
That was so much fun because you're just you're not paying attention to any continuity or anything. You're just out there.
Because we went there on a location scout and we were talking to the Memphis Film Board person, and we are like, was the big hotel where the Ducks play a
Peabody.
big part? The
Peabody,
Peabody Hotel.
yeah.
They bring the Ducks down, and there's a guy,
Right. Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the story of the episode. We said, was it restricted back and when this would have happened? Would black people been allowed in here? And she said, well, I know they had a colored day at the zoo. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like,
Wow.
they kept black kids away from the zoo.
The zoo.
Yeah.
And it
One
just
day a
hit
year.
me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, we need to address this. We need to make this part of the show because it's like kids want to see animals. And,
It's depressing.
Sure.
you know,
God bless you.
yeah. And we just made it. It was great.
And to do that with Ron was sick at the
Yeah,
time.
he was.
Yeah.
And it was all
I
very
didn't know there was crying in
loaded.
the podcast.
There's crying all the time.
Dan insists
All
on
the
it.
time.
We try to keep it to a minimum, but it does happen from time to time.
Speaking of crying in the podcast, my Aunt Rita, remember you did that video for me for my Aunt Rita? She was very sick on death's door. Sully did a video for her. She just had her 92nd birthday. She showed that video to all her friends.
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's
She
amazing.
did a turnaround when that video came out.
It was the video?
Yeah.
It was the video.
my
She's the
God.
biggest This Is Us fan.
My
Amazing.
God.
That's I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It was
You're old,
such an amazing experience, and to have you guys like really set, like directing a pilot. Is it daunting? You guys have done several. You've done your own. You've done other people's or whatnot. But like knowing that you are sort of establishing the track that is going to be what the show is going to be riding on, like. You take it seriously, but like, is it scary or you feel pretty comfortable at this point?
No, that's what we like about it. I think because we pretty much just direct pilots, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah. We
Okay,
do. We did, and a couple and we try to get the show up on its feet, and then we
Right.
try to then the show has a life of
because
its
creating
own.
the world is the fun
Yeah.
part,
Sure,
the
sure.
style. For me at least.
Yeah.
But
And it's
we were, Parenthood was going off the air,
Right.
And we were like, oh well, we were doing our pilot, and like maybe we can get that little slot of the family show,
Yeah.
and Dan and Glenn and I were making jokes on set about DramediCon. Like, this show's gonna be a giant hit. It's gonna be like making fun of the fact like
Sure.
nobody watches dramedy in large numbers. It's not gonna be a thing.
Right.
And we were like, and then the show came out and it was very successful. And we're like, who knew?
So you had
Who
no
knew?
anticipation.
No, we thought we were going to get we wanted our little corner of TV
Sure.
to do the things that we love, which is dramedy,
Right.
dramatic comedy. And we were like, oh, we just want our little corner of Hollywood to do our thing with Dan and us. And then it came out and America was hungry for this
Yeah.
show. You never know.
But you didn't feel like the pilot, like, oh, there's something.
No, everybody loved it.
Yeah.
I've never before had a studio and network so supportive
Oh, okay.
of something, but at the same time being convinced it's never going to get picked up. That was the entire time. We're like, we know this is never going to get picked up, so let's do whatever the hell we want. Because
amazing.
That's good.
I don't know.
Sense
Remember
of
if it was the
freedom.
network or the studio, but they were just like, Dan, there's no way you can do this every week.
Yeah. It seems unsustainable.
And the twists and the things. And, and he was like, he really worked hard at convincing them, like, we can do this and this and this and this, and it can keep going.
Yeah.
And they were not convinced until it was, I think, undeniably successful
Sure.
debut
Sure.
that they would
Yeah.
go through with it.
I mean, because the joke about DramediCon was that it was like, because that's like, all the only
DramediCon
thing
is
that's
a good
popular
idea.
is things that have like conventions like Marvel and Star Wars, like, they're like, and like we're gonna do DramediCon because that's such a ridiculous concept.
Tonight
It's a
in
really good idea.
Tonight in the James Brooks Pavilion.
Yeah.
We're going.
We were like, and this is just stuff we were doing.
That is
Yeah,
so
the
my
cam-
cup of tea.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was like, I want
Man,
DramediCon to
Cameron
do this.
Crowathon.
Yeah.
And so we were joking about it, and then Dan had to leave town, and he says, "Can you guys take over? We're going to do what is that?
Paley Fest.
The Paley Fest,
Fest.
Yeah.
at the theater where they do the Oscars, at the
Yeah.
Kodak Theater." And we walk out with the cast, and it's packed with thousands of people, and they're all on their feet. And I'm like, and I'm texting with Dan. I'm like, Dan, it's DramediCon.
Come to life.
That's basically what Paley Fest is for whatever the show is. Yeah.
I love that Dan probably didn't even have to be out of town. He just left because he didn't want to do Paley Fest. He was like, you guys do it.
More That Was Us after this short break.
Listen, the only gate I keep is in my yard, which is why I have to share the game changer that is Spot and Tango dog food. After trying so many foods, all the foods, every food, Harry and Sally and I were a little skeptical, but since switching, nothing has made a difference like Spot and Tango. Spot and Tango is a personalized dog food subscription that delivers high-quality, ready-to-serve meals, snacks, and supplements right to your door, so no more last-minute pet store runs.
Most dog food, total mystery. Fillers, processed meats, you really don't know what you're getting. But food is medicine, and our dogs deserve the best. With Spot and Tango, you finally know what's in their bowl. Fresh, human-grade ingredients like high-quality protein and veggies, no fillers, no junk, just real food for dogs.
And let's talk about unkibble, because it's not like traditional kibble at all. It's made with human-grade USDA meat, fruits, and veggies. No artificial stuff, no preservatives. Their fresh, dry process gently cooks and freeze-dries fresh ingredients to lock in nutrients so you get a shelf-stable, nutrient-rich meal that's as close to home-cooked as it gets, without the hassle.
Listen, I used to hate feeding Harry and Sally mystery kibble, but those days are long gone with unkibble. Spot and Tango even customized meal plans specific to their ages, their breed, their weight, activity level, so I know that my pup is getting exactly what they need.
And it's not just about what's in the food, it's about how personalized the whole process is. When you sign up, Spot and Tango creates a custom meal plan based on your dog's age, breed, weight, and activity level. So your pup gets precisely what they need, nothing more, nothing less.
And you know what, Mandy? The easy scoop they include makes portioning super simple.
Spot and Tango is offering an exclusive deal for our listeners. For a limited time, go to spotandtango.com/TWU and use code TWU to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/TWU, code TWU to get 50% off your first order. spotandtango.com/TWU, code TWU.
This Easter, we're adding a little bath time magic to our baskets. Because let's be honest, the candy's great, but it's gone in 5 minutes.
So instead of just sweets, why not fill those baskets with something that lasts a little longer? Like Dabble and Dollop's fruity scented bath goodies.
Strawberry, coconut, vanilla, they're like sweet treats for the bath. From bubble baths and shampoos to lotions and mini bath bombs, these are the fun, all-natural gifts that keep the Easter joy going after the hunt.
And here's the hack of the season. Their mini bath bombs fit perfectly inside plastic Easter eggs. Hide them, find them, toss one in the tub. Instant Easter win.
Everything is clean, vegan, tear-free, and made in California by a natural ingredient expert and mom of 3. So yeah, it's safe. It smells amazing, and your kids will be all in.
You can grab them now at Target just in time for Easter. Starting April 12th, shampoos and body washes are 20% off, and their bath bombs are restocked and ready to roll.
Or shop online at dabbleanddollop.com and use the code ThatWasUs20 for 20% off your first purchase. This Easter, treat your little ones to a basket full of creatively clean fun. Try Dabble and Dollop and see how sweet bath time can be.
It's the kind of Easter surprise that turns into a nightly ritual. And those moments, that's what it's all about. Give us something that only you guys would know that he would be comfortable with you sharing about Dan.
And then one thing he would be uncomfortable.
Well, you know what? I mean, because I feel like I could do
sharing.
some things, but I like the thing that I always say about Dan is that he sort of masks his tremendous heart with his incredible intelligence and wit, right? Like he always, he's a smart guy. He's incredibly funny, but it almost takes like
and good looking.
And his cheeks are some of my favorite things in the world. But like you really get a sense of his heart when you read what he writes.
That's right.
Right? Like he doesn't lead with sentimentality. Like I think we've seen him cry once.
Yeah.
Like when we had that moment during season 6 when he brought us all out to the place.
Yeah.
And like he sort of like let it down for a second.
For a second.
For
a brief second.
For a second. So I'm curious from you guys and the collaborations over the course of now 3 projects, like what have you learned about the guy that you think that he wouldn't share himself but wouldn't mind?
Because we're going to ask him the same thing about
I'll
you.
ask him.
So,
Yeah.
He's just like, he makes fun of us mercilessly.
He makes fun of everybody.
Yeah,
He
that's
just-
his love language.
Excellent at it.
That is his love language.
Yeah.
It is his
Yeah.
love language.
I'll come in.
And we
I
do
was
it
in
too.
there. I came in the other day, or like this is a while ago, and I was crying about how much I love my wife. And he just, and most people would be like, you would guys, oh, that's so sweet. Anybody, and he was just like, oh, you wimp. Yeah, just came after me so hard, and you just love him for it. Yeah, that's him. I mean, he's got this unbelievable reservoir of emotion.
He does.
And it all, his stuff is just so lovely and warm. But even when we're doing a thriller,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but it's just like he
likes to save it for sweeps, though.
Well, he just likes, You know, I remember it's just something funny. I don't know if you'll think this is funny. I remember once we were like, oh, we're working with Tina Fey.
Yeah.
She's really great. She's probably the funniest person I've ever met. And he was like, what?
Offended?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely rubbed him up.
Well, that's the thing
We'll
about
see
it.
about that.
What the?
And again, most people just go like, "Yeah, I've heard."
Yeah,
of her. She's
she
amazing.
is
She's one of the
hilarious.
funniest
And
people.
that's why you guys disappeared after season two.
That's right.
Yeah.
The thing is, he
Get over it.
is very, like, what I love about him is that he has a very healthy sense of self.
Yes.
He does. Like, but it's not something that's ostentatious or whatever. Like, you kind of have to get close to him to be like, oh, this dude knows he's kind of that dude.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really share that part
No.
with everybody.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I think that's
Yeah.
a good observation. Yeah, I think because he's
Yeah.
he's got good swag, but at the same time,
Yeah.
he knocks himself down at
He does.
every
Better than
opportunity.
anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is, he's trying to, he doesn't want to go too far.
He has a moment.
He's trying to stay connected to the
You
streets.
guys are both through episode 2. He has this thing, and I think he puts this in Cal's voice, but it's really him, where he says, like, he was so excited to find out that he was better at basketball than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's talking about Xavier. I think he's talking about SKB. And I, in my mind, because he'll talk trash and be like, Sterling, I'm actually pretty good. I'm like, bro, I'm going to treat you like an unloved stepchild. I will beat your ass up and down the court. And he's like, we'll see. And he gets so sort of like snarky cool about it. Like, he's like, I'm better than you think I am, Sterling. He's like that.
Yeah,
Slides it in there.
It's fun.
yeah. You're right though. He's in every thing he's ever written. There's one character that is Dan, and it's Cal, and in Paradise, it's Milo. Milo's character in This Is Us originally was a little more like schlubby mensch.
I think Dan is actually more
imagines himself
Randall.
as fat.
I think he's more Randall, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I
there's Randall in
Well,
there
there's
too.
both. There's both, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's all over that thing. And then, but then he did that movie, The Guilt Trip.
Yeah, that's
Seth
obvious.
Rogen is, and then him and his mother, and everything he writes has something.
Yeah.
Who is he in Cars, I wonder?
Mater.
He's Mater.
Get her done.
Yeah, it's mostly
That's
Mater.
his catchphrase.
Yeah.
That's Dan. Get her done.
Get her done.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit? Obviously, you're working on a project that I know about. It's called Paradise, what have you. We had a very good, solid first season. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. These guys directed 1 and 2. They directed 7 and 8. So they opened up the show. They closed out the show. It was so nice to know that you were in familiar hands.
Sure.
For me, stepping into this whole thing. And the cats are, what I love about people who know what they're doing, right, is that there's never a sense of, I have to be in total control of everything at all at once. Like if I had an idea or threw it out, they'd be like, all right. And their conversation occurs in such a natural and easy way that we just sort of like move forward together. And you guys are amazing, but you're also really amazing at making everybody feel as if they have a seat at the table. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, that's very nice.
This was actually my question, because collaborative seems to be the word.
Yeah.
Like you guys have this balance, right? Where it's collaboration is built into your creative process just by being a team, a partner, partnership, right? But you're also very well known for partnering the genres, like you were saying, drama and comedy.
Yeah.
But I also felt like when you guys were directing, I felt empowered in a way that I did not feel empowered anywhere else. And that's not to put anyone else down. It was just a different vibe. And
Soderbergh.
Say again?
Soderbergh is a hack.
Yes, that's right. That's right. This is what I wanted to say. I wanted to bring you guys
Thank
here
God someone's going to say it.
so that you can hear me say.
Yeah.
What has he done?
It's hard to explain in our industry that television specifically is maybe the most collaborative form of creation.
It has to be.
It makes it quote unquote has to be. Mm-hmm. But it isn't always.
No.
It can be very isolating.
Yeah.
You can feel left out, you can feel put down, and that goes for anybody, not just actor. You can feel, I've seen directors feel, I've seen writers feel that way. And so I'm wondering how you got there to this point where you were so inclusive and
That's
so
a great
welcoming.
question. Yeah.
Because that was what Sterling was saying about your show now, Paradise, because it's not, I'll tell you, it's not as common as I would hope that it would be.
Yeah.
I know your answer.
Which is,
Ooh, give his answer.
Give
please.
his answer.
And then he'll give
And then I
yours.
have a different answer.
well, my answer is, we everything we do is collaboration. We're a team. And so we don't get coffee without collaborating. You know what I mean? We it's so that we just try to open that world of collaboration and bring people in and join us in the collaboration and try to find the strengths of the collaboration, and make people feel welcome to share their ideas. And I mean, because I just think things get better. Somebody has to be there the buck has to stop somewhere, obviously. Otherwise you're never going to make your day.
Yeah.
But that's everybody bring your ideas, Let's play.
I'll say also, and it's something we share with Dan, is we are like editing room creatures. And, we've edited a few of our films ourselves. I came up as an editor. John was in post-production as well. But John actually taught me how to edit on video when we were in college, I remember. So that whole process, when we're sitting there and we're throwing stuff out, and, you'll notice, like, I'll stop in the middle of a sentence. And then I'll go, that's me editing in my head. And I'm going, okay, we could do this. Okay, well, and then I'm thinking back to, like, the 6 takes ago, and, like, okay, and it's important. And Dan's that way too. Like, we could have this shorthand with Dan where he's just like, just get a shot of this.
Right.
Because and I don't have to ask why, because I know exactly why he's asking. Because he's like, because he needs something to cut to get this, or he needs a transition. And I think that's and you have to collaborate, with editors and all these things, and you have to be able to get all that stuff out.
I felt trusted. There's an extreme amount of trust involved in working with you guys.
Get me that Irish guy from the Nick. If he can do an American accent, the job is his.
A few seasons in, I finally asked her, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, and it was because of you two, and you two had seen the Nick.
They said you were available. I said, that's that. And I thought he was.
And I was like, what?
The Nick is like my favorite show ever.
But my question was, you watched that and saw Toby? And I was like, why? I would never ask that to anybody else. I don't want to know why, but
it wasn't the characters so much. It was just the performance.
You're completely lovable in the Nick.
Sure, okay.
You're like a strong, lovable guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Even though you've done some questionable things.
Well, there was when you guys left. I remember the last episode that you guys did, because it was like I had that realization. Like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to do something else?
In season 1, because are you in 214? Yeah, you are in 214.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and during my last scene, you both separately were like, just so you know, as you go forward in this show, do your thing.
Yeah, you guys gave him permission to be like,
you all,
you're going to know this better than any director
all of
that
you
comes in.
are going to know these characters better than anybody.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't know. That was kind of a big moment for me in my career.
And I have a question for you guys about that, about episodic directors.
Yeah.
Because we've never directed an episode of a TV that
they've
wasn't
directed
something
and acted, so they can do
that wasn't something that we did the pilot of or something like that. But like for me, like I said, creating the world is the fun part.
Right.
Helping create the characters and all that stuff, and finding the guardrails and all that. But what does not appeal to me is to be an episodic director, is to come in and knowing, these people have been doing this for 2 seasons. And I have no authority, really, to tell them what to do. So is there an air of collaboration coming from your side to entertain things, or you just want to just trust us?
I've often thought about that too. I'm like, I would find it so hard to be a director going onto someone else's set and just jumping in with a well-oiled machine that a crew and a cast and everything knows everything far better than you ever could.
Yeah.
But what do you mean? In terms of us as actors, what I feel like I always, because we had the Ken Olins of the world that were sort of there as supervising director, producers and stuff, that being able to lean on them when there was a director that would only come in for one episode and then maybe never was asked back or couldn't come back or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like leaning on a Ken or leaning on the writer of the episode was something that, as time went on, I mean, Chris and I often talk about this, like we had never done TV before This Is Us. And like, I didn't understand episodic, like how things just keep going on and we just keep doing this. And there was so much like to learn.
Yeah.
But I found that was the most helpful, was leaning on Ken, was leaning on the writer of the episode. And then Dan was always available and Isaac and Elizabeth were always available. But
yeah, I just the relationship with the episodic director, I'm just not quite sure how it works.
For our listeners, the reason why there's a different director for every episode of television, usually, is because there's all of this prep work that goes into each episode and post-production.
And you can't do both.
And you can't do both while also shooting. And so there has to be a rotation. And so you get to work with all of these wonderful guest directors who come in and do their episode.
Yeah.
But that being said, you get into season 3, 4, 5, 6 of a TV show, and they've watched a couple episodes, but they're not
as adept at steeped in the knowledge of the
They usually watch
history.
the pilot, and if they do their homework, they'll try. I've heard of directors that are like, I've watched all the way up until my episode, which is impressive.
And their job, their job on a very like rudimentary, and this is me minimizing it terribly, is to get coverage. Enough coverage that when they pass that coverage on to the creator of the show who's going to edit it together, he has every option he could want or she could want to put an episode of television together. Yeah. So they're getting different colors and different levels and different emotions and different and they're honestly getting way more options than someone like you or Ken Olin would get.
Yeah.
Because they are
covering,
for lack of a better term, covering their asses.
And I feel like most people that were on our show that were asked to come in and direct the show were excited to be there. They were fans of the show. So like we were able to just sort of match the energy that they brought.
When we were early in the process, when we were doing the pilot and everything, it's like we're trying everything. We're we go through that process.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's this wonderful moment where you're like, oh, they know their character. Yeah. You see it click in. There's like a scene or a thing. And you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Remember on Paradise? I said that's as positive as you get.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do.
And so when we're trying to create a new character, we're just old friends, and we're just like, that's all I think that may be the only note I gave you.
Glenn on a phone call said, he goes like, the too happy stuff doesn't play as well as the more somber. And I was like, okay.
That's years of trust, and we can we shorthand each other. Yeah.
I will say that was probably one of my biggest growing areas as a professional on this show was to allow collaboration with a guest director who I maybe didn't think knew as much as I did.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear that.
I'm serious about this scene, about these two people, about where we've been and where we're going, like all these things.
And trying to understand where they were coming from and meet in the middle, I guess.
And I certainly got a little, like, resistant.
Sully.
Pardon me, sir, madam. I'll take it from here.
You once told me a fascinating story that I think that is maybe germane here, which is you once told me a story where you were in Chicago on the play Chicago, the musical Chicago on Broadway, and you were taking over for somebody who had been there, and you were like you came in for rehearsals one day, you said, and you were able to watch it as much. You could come and get a free ticket and watch it as much as you want, but basically. Yeah. All these people who've been doing this play forever and ever, you just come on one day. And you're there and you're singing and dancing in front of thousands of people. And I'm like, that's how those directors feel.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And to allow collaboration like that, to let them do their job and to not be a pain in the ass of like, all right, you want to try something different? Great. Let's try something different. Like to allow, I definitely needed to learn how to do that more.
It's interesting. Like I feel like we knew our characters, but I'm always I would hate it, honestly, when the directors felt afraid to give me direction. Because I always feel like an outside eye is going to be able to contribute at least a thought or consideration that I may not have had myself. So like I would get the sense sometimes, especially in later seasons and whatnot, where folks would be like, just good. And I'd be like, okay. And then I would actually have to be like, this is what I'm going to do on this take. You know, I will direct myself. I was like, okay, I got that one. On this one, I know that I could possibly do so and so, and then I'd do that too, because I didn't want them. I always want them to feel like they have their leg to stand on. And then usually on the guest director, and you guys could comment on this too, you're going to get the coverage, but you're probably going to have an idea on a scene or two. Maybe you have like 5 or 6 throughout the course of the episode. I'd like to do this shot. I'd really like to do this shot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so you try to get them all the coverage or whatnot. So it's like, can I please do the shot? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's usually a fight with Yasu, who's our DP, because the DP kind of supersedes the guest director at a certain point because of continuity. Yes. And I even on a new show that I do, like I had to witness, oh, please, children, can we just get along? Let this person have their shot. Yeah. Just, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and now as a producer, I'm like, oh God, the kids aren't getting along.
Usually that's a time constraint thing. Sure. It's like, you gotta get, good guys are doing this every day. We, can't be doing long hours. Yeah. I'm just a completely different subject. I just was reminded of something when we were talking about John Poor and the Bureau Man.
We're back to that.
Being in a moment where things could go really wrong. I don't remember what episode it was, but it was the one where Justin was going to be in some bachelor auction, and
bachelor auction. Okay.
And I just sort of rushed up to you and I went, "Tell me what you think of this." This is a black man isn't going to be envious of getting auctioned off.
Yes.
And it like came out of my mouth. And I went, oh my God, this could go really wrong.
It was at that time that I thought Glenn Ficarra was black. I was like, he's just passing over here. No, but that was the other episode. That was the episode because we had Deja, and he was going to the thing that Sophie had asked him to come to, and he wound up bailing on her. Yeah. And that's when you were throwing out all the alts to Justin. So there was one more episode.
Oh, so that was like 2 something.
Yeah, that was probably the last one.
Yes, it had to be 2 something because she didn't come until 2.
We just talked about it.
Lyric was our, that was it.
There you go.
Yeah, what a find.
I totally remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, no black man wants to be auctioned off. Like, and that was the line that you gave me, and I was like, it's a good line.
This is the only time I've known you for years, and I was just like,
is this okay?
But stand there.
But it's like, it's kind of like when you live on that comedy line, you're just like, you got to try some shit.
You got to try it.
Sterling, you know what I think a black man would say here? If I could.
I
just remember that like nanosecond felt like a year.
As I contemplated it and said, no, it's good. It's been nothing but a delight. Gentlemen, thank you for making time.
Thank you for coming, guys.
For coming in, for reminiscing over the good old days. As they're about to go off and start planning episode 201 of Paradise, this is John Requa and Glenn Ficarra.
Thank
you guys.
Yeah, we always said one thing before I go. We always said what the great thing about being a director for Glenn and I, and why I think we were inclusive and make people collaborate, help make people feel free to collaborate, is because when actors are in it, for me and Glenn, it's like we're like a kid at a magic show, and you guys were the best magic show of all. Those early days.
Gosh.
Yeah,
appreciate it, fellas.
Very kind.
Yeah,
thank you very much. We'll be back with more.
That was us.
That Was Us is filmed at Rabbit Grin Studios and produced by Rabbit Grin Productions. Music by Taylor Goldsmith and Griffin Goldsmith.
Da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, that was us.